I now call upon the Honourable Minister in the Presidency.
Honorable House Chairperson, His Excellency the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, colleagues in the Cabinet, honorable members. We have had a huge debate around the national dialogue. But as the President has indicated, the national dialogue is one of the most important pillars of any thriving democracy. It is a bridge that connects government to citizens, leaders to communities, and one generation to the next. In moments of uncertainty, it provides clarity, and in seasons of transformation, it offers us direction and shared purpose. From South Africa's own journey out of apartheid, where dialogue laid the foundation for reconciliation and democracy, the lesson is clear. When people talk honestly, openly and respectfully, nations change. Contrary to attempts to mislead South Africans, the national dialogue is not an event. It is a process that will commence on the August 15th and take place for a period of no less than 12 months. The national dialogue must be a culture where disagreement is not a threat but a sign of a healthy democracy, a culture where every voice matters, whether from the hills of the rural provinces or the corridors of our cities. A culture where youth are not just heard but involved, and where the marginalized are not only included but empowered. To achieve these goals, the National Dialogue Preparatory Task Team and the IMC have proposed an inclusive process that will be immersed in deep citizen engagements that prioritizes the voice of those who feel marginalized. We have identified 30 sectors of our society around which to mobilize, with an emphasis on diversity and inclusion of the often marginalized sections of our society. In its entirety, the national dialogue will involve the following layers of conversation. First, the first national convention on the 15th of August 2025, where 1,000 delegates are expected. This is an agenda-setting convention which will prepare the nation for the community engagements. Two is the community dialogues, where 13,400 word-based community dialogues are supposed to take place. Three, the online platform is aiming to reach no less than 2.5 million citizens. There will also be smaller citizen-hosted events in churches and community groups that shall have access to the toolkit being designed so that outcomes feed into the process. Sectoral dialogues self-organized in specific social or economic sectors, which shall also have access to the toolkit so that their outcomes fit into the process. The second national convention will be the concluding event that converts the engagements into a national compact and 30-year plan of action. We estimate that this will be about another 1,000 delegates. A detailed implementation plan will then be developed and a national roadshow to socialize the outcomes of the national dialogue and engage with the implementation partners. Independent, citizen-led monitoring and evaluation will remain in place. Therefore, the national dialogue is for everyone. The majority of the work of conceptualizing and planning for the national dialogue process has been undertaken by ordinary citizens from various walks of life who have volunteered their time, skills, and resources to the national effort over the past 12 months. After a week of opening up online platforms, as many as 737 organizations have registered their wish to participate in various elements of the national dialogue. This is an average of 100 per day to show that many South Africans are eagerly awaiting this national dialogue. So when you don't want to participate, you will remain there alone. South Africans are eager to participate. The national dialogue will also promote government social cohesion efforts and strengthen social compacting as led by Deputy President Paul Mashatile. The Deputy President has led social cohesion efforts. The Deputy President's led social cohesion efforts have prioritized a focus on gender-based violence and femicide, teenage pregnancy, racism, sexism, and patriarchy, as well as the role of families in building communities, because that is things that South Africans must take care of and does not need government. Government must be there to support South Africans. At the core of building communities, the Deputy President is also assigned the responsibility to coordinate efforts to improve service delivery by supporting the President in the rollout of the district development model, lead the IMC on service delivery, the water task team, and oversee the coordination of government's public employment programs. Honorable Mgweba did justice on explaining the DDM model. Madam Deputy, or Madam House, House Chair, excuse me. In the seventh administration President Ramaphosa delegated Deputy President Paul Mashatile with the responsibility of leader of government business in Parliament, in line with Section 91(4) of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. This responsibility entails driving the legislative program of government while ensuring executive accountability to Parliament, building relations between the executive and leaders of opposition parties, and enhancing the electorate's public participation in policy and lawmaking process. In the current administration of government, this responsibility has been coupled with the Deputy President's role of facilitating the clearinghouse mechanism of government of national unity, as per the decision of Cabinet of the 18th September 2024. In navigating and facilitating the success of the current political configuration, the clearinghouse mechanism must serve as a working committee of the Political Leaders Forum. The clearinghouse mechanism ensures that contentious policy considerations are deliberated without hindering or delaying the focus of the administration. This mechanism is a resource through which parties in the GNU must pursue political coordination to build consensus on contentious policy matters. This makes the ultimatums to the President and playing to the gallery so unnecessary by a party that is a signatory to the statement of intent. House Chairperson, the Presidency is tasked with leading the nation towards the fulfillment of the aspirations of our National Development Vision, Plan and Vision 2030. This is no small ask. It is one that requires all hands, brains, and yes, political orientations on deck. The Presidency remains focused on achieving our national objectives and continue to ensure that our people, particularly the historically disadvantaged, women, youth, and persons with disabilities, are mainstreamed in our economy and government services reach all South Africans. We are diligently focused in doing this. Since 2020, the Presidency has been coordinating the acceleration of government efficiency by working with departments, entities, and social partners. As mentioned by the President, Operation Vulindlela continues to drive structural reforms to drive inclusive economic development that creates jobs. In its phase 2 of implementation, the 2025-2026 first quarter Operation Vulindlela report, released on Monday, 14th July, demonstrates sustained progress in economic reform agendas, which serve as a counter to strong economic headwinds. Key milestones during this past quarter include the publication of the ministerial determination, as already mentioned by Honorable Hadebe, and associated regulations to enable the first round of independent transmission projects, as well as the request for information for major private sector participation projects in the freight logistics sector. The network statement and rail access tariffs were published in December 2024, have resulted in 98 applications from private freight operators, and this is currently under review with slot sales to be allocated soon. And also the clearing of the backlog of 306,000 visa applications by the Department of Home Affairs has been notched through Operation Vulindlela. Progress has been made in the new areas of reform included in phase 2, with a comprehensive review of the white paper on local government as led by Honorable Hlabisa to reform the local government system, and the introduction of performance-based financing mechanism to support the reform of municipal water and electricity services. The President referred to the progress made in eThekwini through the work of the Presidential eThekwini Working Group. Just to give further details on the achievement registered under the Presidential eThekwini Working Group, is the finalization of the water supply agreements for the Upper Umkomazi Water Project, which will provide 200 cubic meters per annum by 2032. In the short to medium term, there's been a focus on reducing non-revenue water, including the refurbishment and rehabilitation of key aqueducts, pipelines, and pump stations. The unlocking of additional funding to support the water and sanitation turnaround plan, including the 189.5 million BFI grant to improve non-revenue water reduction in the north of eThekwini, as announced during the MTTPS. 10 of the largest wastewater treatment works in the eThekwini are now run by Umgeni Uthukela Water, resulting in improvement in effluent compliance. Several transport infrastructure projects are making progress, including the repair of the Umlas Canal damaged during the 2022 floods, which is now 60% complete. Other transportation infrastructure projects include the completion of the rehabilitation of key road arteries, including the M37. This work of the Presidential eThekwini Working Group has contributed to the progress in improving service delivery in eThekwini and positioning it as an investment hub. We are confident that we'll achieve same progress with the Presidential Johannesburg Working Group. To support the President's initiative to revitalize our cities, the Deputy President on August 2024 announced the Clean Cities and Towns and Villages campaign to revitalize cities, towns and villages and improve service delivery by keeping our environment and our surroundings clean. House Chairperson, a strong presidency must be institutionally supported. It requires a capable state, one with professional public servants, strong institutions, and systems of integrity. When the presidency is strong, it unlocks the potential of the entire government machinery. A strong government machinery accelerates delivery of services to the people of South Africa. We are humbled to table the total allocated budget of the presidency for the 2025-2026 financial year of 747.2 million. I say we are humbled because we know these funds come from the nation. It comes from businesses and individuals who play their part in our country's development by paying their taxes and levies that constitute the public purse. These monies are hard-earned, and the SARS Commissioner will tell you some of these monies are hard collected, and we thank SARS for this. We therefore pledge that we'll work judicially with these funds to ensure that they are spent in the ways we have committed and ensure that they deliver the positive impacts of our society and our economy that are foremost in our minds and professional conduct. The allocation has been distributed per program as follows: administration, 657.5 million, executive support, 55.7 million, and policy and research services, 25.8 million. House Chairperson, a strong presidency does not mean autocracy. It means accountability, visionary, ethical, and decisive leadership that is empowered to act in the interest of the people. I would have thought a person holding a PhD in law would understand this basic fact, that the president must be guided by the Constitution and constitutional provisions. However, he is the same person who was declared not to be fit to be a judge or a judge president by the Judicial Service Commission, a fact even confirmed by the caucus, by the courts. House Chair, I want to thank our president for leading us in difficult times and putting the needs and hopes of South Africans first, while contributing to the reconfiguration of our global institutions of government. I'd like to remind Honorable Hlophe that since 2028, President Ramaphosa has been seized with rebuilding the broken ESCOM, broken Transnet, broken SSA, broken DNL, and many other entities broken during the fourth and fifth administration led under the erstwhile President Jacob Zuma, the lifelong president of MKP.
Order, honorable members.
To remind South Africans that it was again under President Cyril Ramaphosa that in 2020, when we were seized with the COVID-19 vaccine pandemic, and the West were holding vaccines and not wanting them to be available for South Africans and Africans in general, he championed the vaccine access program. Under his leadership, South Africans and Africans were able to access vaccines, which were life-saving and therefore sparing us many lives that could have been lost. Even when we remember those who have passed on during the COVID-19 pandemic, the numbers could have been scarier, the numbers could have been worse, but President Ramaphosa stood firm and made sure that our country is protected. Honorable Bodlane unfortunately has left the House. When you want to expropriate other people's proposals, you don't come and make accusation. I didn't say the print media is dead. I said facts indicate that the print media is dead. 600 print newspapers in 2020, and now we are only sitting with a meager 60. And I'll leave Honorable Morolong, Deputy Minister, to deal with the details that Honorable Botlane wanted to expropriate. Because we have been very consistent in our work to support community media, include on the legislation and the amendments thereof, to make sure that we've got access. Actually, during the national dialogue, we are going to use community media to make sure that our people can participate in the national dialogue using their own languages without the need for translation. They can make inputs using their own languages through community media, which is supported by the very MDDA she was trying to criticize. Honorable members, as South Africans, we have a responsibility to look into ourselves and also plan together and work for the greater benefit of our country.
Honorable Minister, will you just take your seat, please? Why do you want to be recognized on
Ngithokoze mgcinisihlalo bengitho nje ukuthi ngiyabuza ukuthi angawuthatha umbuzo ngoba akakarisi kuhle ni ukuthi umbuzo angawuthatha na umbuzo nje kuphela.
No, Honorable
Can you take
Member,
a question?
Honorable Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
Ngeke ngithathe umbuzo wakhe.
Honorable Member, Minister is not prepared. Please continue, Honorable Minister.
Honorable House Chairperson, we have a responsibility not to criticize for the sake of criticizing. We have the responsibility to build South Africa together. That does not reside in one political party, it resides across all of us. You've got a president that has served this country diligently, that has traversed many difficult periods, and in his leadership, we are here where we are because the situation could have been worse if he was not in leadership. We have rebuilt an economy which had collapsed through COVID-19 to the eras of 2016. And through his effort and the economic recovery and reconstruction program that he led us as a cabinet to deliver on, President Ramaphosa made sure that we do not only recover, but we recover in record time. You may not like the facts as stated by State South Africa in the census survey, but those are facts. And those facts remain facts because there is a methodology that Statistics South Africa does. And we know, all of us, the challenges that confronted Statistics South Africa when they had to run a census during COVID-19. Many countries abandoned their census, but also when they had to run a digital census during that period. But I'll leave the details to my Deputy Minister, Honorable Ntshavheni, to deal with that part of the work. As the presidency, we would like to thank Parliament for keeping us accountable. It isn't always pretty, but it's always necessary. And it helps the administration to sharpen its outlook and its praxis. Because we are the convener of the government of South Africa, we are the convener of South Africa. I'll also like to thank the leadership and staff in the presidency as headed by Director General Phindile Baleni and Chief Operations Officer Rory Golega for dedicating themselves in ensuring that the presidency plays its rightful role in a nation that works for all. I thank you. Ndiyaleboha, siyathokoza, enkosi.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next speaker is the Honorable Kwankwa.
Sorry. Thank you, Honorable House Chair. We rise to debate Budget Vote 1 at a time when the government of national unity stands on shaky ground. This JNU in its current form lacks the stability and coherence our country so desperately needs. To date, there is no single unified coalition agreement that binds all political parties equally. No common terms, no shared program of action, no trusted mechanisms to consult, to resolve disputes, or to govern together with clarity. Instead, what we see is an arrangement that resembles a political polygamy, where the ANC entered into multiple unequal agreements with different political parties without a central binding framework to hold this coalition together. This cannot continue. If we are serious about building a stable, credible, and functional government, one that truly reflects the will of the people, then we must urgently establish a binding coalition agreement, one that restores mutual respect, one that guarantees equal participation, one that ends the current ad hoc opaque practices that exclude some and favor others. Honorable President, with a clear shared program of action, we will no longer be reacting to the world, we will be shaping our place in it. We will be equipped to navigate global trade and complex geopolitical challenges with discernment, ensuring a measured balance between ideological conviction and pragmatic decision-making. President, without overstating the well-established importance of unity of purpose within government, it must be noted that had the aforementioned been implemented, the national budget would not have required revision in 3 separate occasions. As a consequence, and even now, the appropriations bill was set to pass next week remains vulnerable to a legal challenge on the grounds of unconstitutionality because we have fallen short of the constitutional requirement for proper public consultation. I now refer to your decision to establish yet another commission of inquiry during your tenure. This is to investigate allegations of misconduct within the law enforcement agencies and the broader security cluster. Undoubtedly, such an inquiry is both necessary and justified in light of the serious allegations raised by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. However, it must be acknowledged that many South Africans have grown increasingly skeptical of commissions of inquiry due to a recurring pattern in which the recommendations of commissions are ignored. The Zondo Commission serves as a stark example. We need a clear commitment from you that prosecutions will follow findings of all commissions of inquiry convened to date, including the current one, as the value of inquiries is ultimately measured not by the reports they produce, but by the accountability they deliver. The UDM proposes that we undertake a review of our legislative framework to enable private prosecutions in instances the NPA fails to initiate legal proceedings within reasonable timeframes. Honorable President, Operation Vulindlela must now evolve into Operation Vulimisebenzi, an urgent call to open pathways to employment. Millions of young people in our country have lost hope of ever finding a job, and current interventions are proving insufficient. Even the current learnership and internship programs largely cater only for the youth between the ages of 18 to 35. This narrow focus must be reconsidered. Given the scale of unemployment crisis and those without experience, the UDM proposes that 60% of learnership and internship opportunities continue to target those between the age of 18 to 35, while the remaining be allocated to individuals aged between 35 and 45 who remain unemployed. Many in this category are victims of long-term structural unemployment, and excluding them from such initiatives simply because they fall outside of the conventional definition of youth is both unjust and counterproductive, as this age group remains in one of the most potentially productive phases of life and must not be left behind. In those words, the UDM supports the budget vote. Siyabulela.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Bapti.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable President, Honorable Ministers, Honorable Members in the House, I greet you all. Last week, we heard from the Honorable Minister Ramaphosa about the visions and the plans taking shape within the energy and electricity sector, and how that sets the country on a road to energy security with access and affordability that should power the nation to economic growth and greater employment opportunities. Manufacturing depends on a reliable source of energy to keep the machines rolling, to keep those wheels turning, and to keep the communication flowing. Agriculture too depends on all those machines that perform the myriad of tasks that are found in modern farming practices. Our healthcare facilities, our schools, our colleges, transport infrastructure, water infrastructure, environmental management infrastructure, communications, they all depend on a source of available energy. And so energy is a universal economic enabler. It's that central role that it plays that underscores the importance of planning diligently for the provision of a reliable energy source in the future. However, the Integrated Energy Plan, the Integrated Resource Plan, and the Gas Master Plan must still be adopted. The Integrated Energy Plan, as a broad roadmap to future energy security, has not yet been published. So there is a compelling need to move with speed in its delivery to provide direction and confidence in a fast-changing energy market. The Integrated Resources Plan is imminent, and that's the word we keep hearing. But the electricity sector needs certainty to accelerate the rollout of renewables in a scenario of an aging coal fleet and our stated commitments to responsible climate practices. The gas cliff looms ever larger as time marches on. Mr. President, we have reached the point where action must replace talk so that our recovery can commence in earnest. Eskom remains a major player in our energy sector, and we felt the harsh impact of its failures during times of load shedding. The recovery in Eskom generation, though, came through a much-needed maintenance regime, and that resulted in its energy availability factor improving to an average of 59.6% last year. That improvement is also evident in its planned capacity loss factor that increased over time, but the question remains, is it enough? Eskom's coal fleet has aged, and many stations are facing the end of life in the not-too-distant future. That generation capacity must be replaced, and our prospects for economic growth require that total generation must increase in the short term. The question that arises is whether the growth in new generation is fast enough to avoid a future load-shedding scenario. An improvement in Eskom's EAF, coupled with rapid growth in renewables, begins to address that growing gap that we see in South Africa's supply and demand performance. Because while demand has shown limited but steady growth, supply has not kept pace. And this trend must be arrested if we are to end the load shedding for the future. The IRP will play a central role in addressing that gap. The National Energy Crisis Committee, through the Energy Action Plan, made very swift progress in ending load shedding and enabling new generation capacity. Their work must continue to pave the way to an energy secure future, but always bearing in mind that cost and affordability have become critical components for our future. The cost of renewables has declined significantly when compared to other technologies. Whilst energy diversity is important in the mix, it undoubtedly will add to overall security. The immediate need for generation at an affordable rate and within short timeframes should not be underestimated. This subject brings into sharp focus the important role of small-scale embedded generation. The growth in SSEG came on the back of load shedding and the fight for survival that it engendered in industry, in commerce, and in our civilian life. But it makes a substantial contribution to our overall energy needs, approximately 5.5 to 6 gigawatts of power. It should therefore be encouraged. The punitive approach taken by Eskom towards those customers who make the effort at personal cost to self-generate is not helpful. Incentivizing customers, making it easy to register under a program like Cape Town's Cash for Power is it's good for the sector. Eskom must be persuaded to adopt a constructive approach that promotes rooftop solar and battery backup. It's not just that, it's also that the demand for PV panels and related equipment creates a market for local production and services. It adds to the employment pool. Eskom faces risks as its market share declines and competition in the sector increases. But one of these risks comes from local government. Now, we know it is receiving attention in the form of distribution agency agreements, but the recent court case between the Eskom and the city of Joburg showed us just how bad the scale of poor governance and mismanagement is in the local government sphere. There has to be some form of personal accountability to attach to what amounts to grand-scale electricity theft, if that is to end. Efforts to build local capacity to supplement local performance, these are greatly appreciated. But to ensure that the old practices do not re-emerge, there needs to be a very strong deterrent. Gas is an important part of a future energy mix, and it is instrumental in transitioning to cleaner energy sources. But the gas master plan needs to be delivered with speed to avoid the impending gas cliff in 2028. The mobilization of the gas industry rests on substantial investments and builds in gas infrastructure. And we see the first window of the gas independent power producers procurement program, and we welcome it, but it needs to be followed up closely. We need a much faster rollout. And here again, Mr. President, there is need for actions over words so that progress is manifest in bricks and mortar. The job creation potential in the gas economy adds to this need for urgency. Our ambitious plans in green hydrogen are not met with implementation at the same pace. And the risk in not accelerating progress in this field is that competition in the global market could hurt our case for becoming a global supplier. So here again, the need for action becomes apparent if we are to harvest the best outcomes for South Africa. Our just energy transition to a cleaner and more environmentally sustainable future, coupled with the overwhelming need to promote economic growth for high volumes of job creation and the accompanying need for security and affordability in an energy future, come together to make a very compelling case for an action-orientated approach to what gets done today, what gets done tomorrow, and what gets done in the immediate future. The rapid transition to a competitive energy
Honourable
market.
Member, your time has expired. Thank you.